Hi, this is Dave Bazaar, and this is the latest. I'm here with Michael Scheller. Welcome, Michael.
Thank you for having me.
Michael is a water master with Harris Enterprises, the farming operation. We're also going to be joined a little later by Dominic Chang, another important water master in our operation. The plan for the next 2 episodes, hopefully, is to try to go through everything we do in our irrigation systems to optimize them. And Michael and Dominic are the point of the spear on that operation. So, Michael, why don't you give us a little general sense of what you do?
So I'm basically checking everything. I check the field, I check the filters and the reservoir behind us. I make sure that all of our acid and our gyp is getting into the field to optimize the tree's potential, to give it the best production it can have.
Yeah, so you're in charge of the irrigation system, and each one of those elements requires care and maintenance, I assume, huh?
Yeah, each one does. So our sprinklers, our drip lines, they need to be cared for. They need to be giving out the right amount of water. We can't waste any water. So we need to make sure everything's running the best it can to be able to make sure nothing's broken, and then we're getting the best production out of the trees.
And I always like to throw a little old man stuff on this. Obviously, Michael's a lot younger than I am, but when I started out in the almond industry, they had flood irrigation. They had stuff called hose pull. They had solid set sprinklers. Those two would have been like the, oh wow, we're high tech area of it. I know in our own operation, whenever we have flood, it's almost a secondary deal. It's meant to heavy flush, maybe a heavy dose of water to do things, but it's more of a rarity to see a flood irrigation system in at least the operations that you see, right?
Yeah, it's expensive to pull that water out of the ground, and it's expensive to buy it. So we're trying to minimize that cost by doing the sprinklers and the drip irrigation.
Yeah, and again, that technology is relatively new. I know it doesn't seem like it. To me, it's incredibly high tech. It includes pressure compensating emitters, and so that accuracy of applying just the same amount of water everywhere in your orchard is all contained in that.
Yeah, each emitter is going to put out a certain amount, and it needs to have that certain amount of pressure behind it and a certain amount of flow of water, so it can give that its optimum peak of performance out of the dripper.
Why don't we're going to go take a little move and try to show all the things that Michael and Dominic are doing during the year to make sure that happens. Let's take a little walk. Okay, so we're going to start with the reservoir, Michael. Why don't you run us through everything water-wise in the reservoir here?
So everything we have starting out, so we have our liquid copper sulfate at our wells, and then that's pre-reservoir. So it gets dumped into here. And then what we're looking at with the reservoir is the pH. We want to make sure we know what the pH is. So then once we get past our acid, then we can know what's in the field, so we can see that difference and how much our acid pump's working. Because if it's the same in the reservoir and the same in the field, we know that our acid pump isn't working correctly. So that's one thing we want to look for pH wise. We also want to look at the cleanliness of the reservoir. We have aerators in here right now, so we try to get rid of the green, dark green, gross color to try to make it more clear, so that we don't have this gunk and algae getting sucked up our pumps, so then they clog up our filters.
So you're visually looking to see, hey, how's this clarity of the water, and you're saying that the aerator as well as this copper sulfate that you're injecting at the deep well is what's trying to solve that situation.
Yeah, this ranch is known for its iron bacteria, so it's pink algae, and it gets clogged on all of our emitters and the sprinklers. So we dump it in, and it works to help kill that, and so when it gets sucked up the pump and gets put in the field, we aren't having that issue anymore.
Okay, so there's your water source, has been dropped off here. Now you've got your lift pumps into the system itself, right?
Yep.
So what do you got going here?
Yeah, so these are just the pumps, and they're put in the concrete pad in the center of the reservoir. So they suck up the water at a certain gallons per minute. We can change it with our meters down by the acid pump. And so these are just the water lubricated pumps. And then we just make sure our chlorine's running along with all of these.
So the chlorine goes in here.
Yep, chlorine gets dumped down, and then the pump will pull it up immediately. So it's cleaning the whole entire, the inside of the pump, as long as...
And right on into your system itself.
Right on into the system, yep.
And are you measuring that chlorine level?
Yeah, we want to try for the pump constantly running. We were trying to keep it around a 1 part per million. This will help kill everything it needs to kill, but not giving too much to where it hurts the trees in the long run.
Okay, and you mentioned checking the pH level and the reservoir. Are you doing that just by taking a water sample out of the reservoir itself?
Yeah, we have a little gauge that we put in the reservoir. We get a sample of the water, we can see what it is, and then we'll check it at a couple different spots just to make sure
All
we're
along the
staying
way.
consistent.
And I think you're gonna be talking that all the way, right? Yeah. Chlorine level here, chlorine level there, chlorine level in my field, each step of the way.
Yeah.
And roughly how often are you taking a look at this reservoir?
Every time I come on a ranch, every time.
Yeah, it's a repetitive process, over and over and over.
You don't miss it at all.
Okay, well, let's go take a look at the next stage, the filters. Okay, Dominic and Michael are now going to take us through everything that they do here at the filter station.
So first off, we're going to come check the acid system here. We have a fancy one that's a variable speed pump, so it regulates itself. There's no need to check on it. And we keep ours at about a 6.5, and that's to help our nutrient uptake. It's where we like it about best, keep everything good. And we can secondhand check it with this right here, fancy little pH reader. So Michael, we can go check on it right now, huh?
So right now we're going to be checking the pH right after the reservoir. So we're going to be getting this from our sample line right here. So our sample line's running about 6.75. So and that's just with it, whatever in the line at the moment. It's dropping right now 6.37. So it's going to be bouncing up and down all over the place because that's when the pump's going to inject. It's going to bring it down and tell the pump to stop, but then it's going to kick itself back on again because it wants to stay at that 6.5. So you're going to have a little bounce up and down, but when it's in that mark, it's going to be right where we want it in the field.
Yeah, so now we're going to be checking the pressures that go into the field. All of our fields are designed to have a special irrigation design that need a certain amount of pressure to get things done. So at this ranch, we run about 42 pounds of pressure on top, and right now we're at 40 pounds on bottom. So that's actually a really good pressure difference. If not, this fancy box right here has a sensor that'll tell it when to flush when the pressure gets on and off. So we go make sure that thing's running smoothly. It's reading pressure difference, which it is, 2 difference. And so pressures are good so far. So that means in the field, we should have everything right based on the design.
So we check our pressures every time we come. Every time anyone's here, they should always be checking pressures. So we have to know top, bottom, and then that'll tell us how dirty these are. If we see it go up 4, 5, we kind of know these are kind of getting dirty and they're going to need to be flushed. So that's when the timer should flush it or the PD switch is going to flush it. But we always want to make sure as the human to come and look at it, check it, and make sure these are running perfect.
So here we're at the C-metrics flow meter we have on this filter and pump. So like I was saying earlier, everything's got a design to it, the fancy irrigation first pressure. So this system is designed to be about 20 gallons per minute per acre based on each individual tree getting its application. And by that, you'd get about 20 gallons per minute. And we have a 200 acre set on, so we should have about 4,000 gallons a minute here, more or less. So we're at almost 3,900. And so it's pretty accurate. These things are within a 0.01 accuracy. And so 3,800, that's close. We'll have to check in the field to see if everything's plugged up or how it looks in the field, and that'll confirm it.
All right, so this is another place we want to check. This is the end filter that connects all of our flush valves together, so they're getting clean water. So this is one place we stop at to check our chlorine ppm. And then this is also another point where we can check our pH for the reservoir. So we just turn the valve, open it up, let it flow a little bit, and then we get all of our testing equipment and check what we're supposed to do.
So we just went through checking all the reservoir and their pH, all the chlorine, then into the filter system. You ran through flow rates, you ran through pressure, all that in preparation for now it's heading to the field, huh? And all these things are now important to be checked in the field, that everything's going through smooth. So why don't we go out there and see what they do to make sure everything is working right.
So now we've come out to the field and we're gonna make sure our pH, chlorine, and our pressure is where we want it. So we're gonna open up the figure 8, let all the water come out of it for a little bit, let it flow so we can get some new water coming in. And then we're gonna check it, check pressures, and check chlorine. So our irrigators are going up and down the rows. all the time. Every single time water's on a specific set, they're going up and down. They're checking for leaks. They're checking for plugged emitters, and they're checking for plug sprinklers. So they're going to be fixing all that. And these guys' job is to see. They're the first ones that are going to be able to see inside of the field of what's the issue. So they can call us and say, hey, I have a sprinkler that's low, but then the next one's getting a lot of pressure. So then we're gonna have to figure out, okay, well, is that a valve that's bad in the field, or is that just a riser that's not all the way turned on? So then we kind of start diagnosing the problems as we know and as we can see them.
So we go around, we check the pressure acid like Michael was saying, and we do that on all 4 corners of the ranch to make sure, or the block that's being irrigated, to make sure that it's being evenly distributed throughout the whole field. We personally check it once a week, try to, sometimes more, sometimes less, depending on how the schedule goes. But we try and get it at least once a week. And then the irrigators are also checking throughout every single day, going over it.
Okay. Hopefully you guys have listened to this and seen how much attention and detail is being applied into that irrigation system. I think here at Harris Enterprises, the importance of water is huge. I know Russell is a big proponent of it's a big reason you get yields. As Michael said earlier, it's precious, even more precious today as we run through this resource. So the ability to make sure that that is efficiently being applied is just the most important thing you can do. So that's been the latest with Dominic and Michael. Thank you.